queen. What if the real danger isn't in the eyes of someone who hates you, but in the hug of someone who smiles at you? That question lingers because it reveals something most of us would rather ignore. The most dangerous faces don't wear scary masks. They wear familiarity. Sometimes it's the best friend who always puts you down with backhanded compliments. Other times it's the person you share a bed with. You feel something off, but you question your own perception. But today, you're going to learn how to listen to that quiet inner whisper that never lies, your feminine intuition. Yes, there are emotionally dangerous people who turn relationships toxic. What makes it even more alarming, they don't mean harm. They act under the control of their own unconscious. And that makes it even harder to notice and protect yourself. While you're defending yourself from obvious villains, you might be emotionally opening up to something far more subtle and far more dangerous. People who drain your soul without realizing it. What's the name of that? Unintegrated unconscious. Carl Jung spent his life studying this through what we now call shadow psychology and the Jungian archetypes, like the persona and the shadow. Now it's your turn to understand how to protect your energy and your essence. Let's dive into this deep knowledge that connects mental health awareness, spirituality, and emotional truth, so you'll never again doubt your perception. This video will reveal the 6 types of dangerous people according to Jung, and why learning to recognize them is the first step toward freeing yourself from toxic relationships, psychological manipulation, and invisible patterns that drain your peace. Now take a deep breath, because the revelation is about to begin. There's a quiet pattern hiding behind some people's affection that slowly drains your peace. It turns you into the target of someone else's unresolved pain. Someone who's never learned to handle their own inner chaos. According to Carl Jung, these people are ruled by hidden parts of their mind, wounded pieces of their soul that take over without them realizing it. And so, without knowing it, they turn you into the dumping ground for their unprocessed emotions. Everything they can't stand to feel, they pour into you. If you're a sensitive woman, you absorb all of it, because you feel before you understand. And in your desire to help, you try to ease their pain with your own energy. At first it feels like care, like empathy. But little by little, it starts to hurt. You walk away from conversations more exhausted than you were before. You feel like you gave too much and got nothing back. And even then, you keep trying to be understanding, keep trying to hold on. But no one is meant to carry someone else's emotional weight all the time. The truth is, you're not here to carry others. You're here to awaken yourself. And awakening means seeing clearly what you once missed. This is the beginning of your awakening through self-awareness. It's not about rejecting or hating the other person. It's about recognizing the line between what is yours and what never was. This is the start of true emotional self-defense, of healing unconscious patterns, and of building your energetic boundaries. The first type we'll talk about is the unconscious manipulator. They seem fragile, lost. They say they need you, but what they really need is someone to carry what they refuse to face. This kind of person doesn't lie, scream, or threaten. They do something much subtler. They place you in the role of emotional caretaker. You find yourself saying yes when you want to say no, canceling plans, watching your words, carrying guilt that isn't yours. And all the while, you feel like if you're too firm, you'll hurt them, because they always seem on the verge of breaking. But what you don't see at first is that their fragility is a kind of shield. Behind it is a pattern. Every time you try to step away, they pull you back with sad stories, empty stares, or guilt-laced silences. Not out of malice, but because they've learned to protect themselves by manipulating others' affection. Carl Jung would call this unconscious projection. They can't deal with their own pain, so they throw it at you and expect you to fix it. And if you're someone who feels everything, who has feminine intuition, who was raised to care for everyone, you'll find yourself caught in their web, because they don't trap you with control. They trap you with guilt. Over time, you start to doubt yourself. You wonder if you're being too harsh on the poor thing. And this is the most dangerous moment, when you start feeling wrong for wanting to protect your emotional and energetic space. When you judge yourself for needing distance from someone who's just suffering. But their suffering can't be used as an argument against your peace, no matter how vulnerable they seem. Psychological manipulation is still manipulation, and protect your energy is also an act of self-love. The second dangerous type seems flawless. Soft answers, constant smile, organized life. On social media, everything's balanced. In person, everything feels light. But you feel something off. A silence that hides. A look that never fully lets you in. Everything looks fine, but doesn't feel real. What you're sensing is the persona, the archetype. Carl Jung described as the social mask, one of the core Jungian archetypes. The part we build to be accepted, admired, desired. You feel like you're with someone, but can't truly reach them. You're talking to a role, not a soul. And you start wondering if you're the problem, but you're not. This kind of person expects you to wear a mask too, to not feel too much, not reveal too much, not disturb the perfect balance of the emotional bubble they've created. Because any real depth scares them. Any imperfection threatens them. And in this game of appearance and control, you slowly disconnect from yourself. This is one of the most subtle forms of toxic relationships. There's no fighting, but you feel sick. No shouting, but there's a quiet loss of identity. And the most dangerous part is that in this kind of atmosphere, your intuition starts going quiet because it senses the fake. But you keep trying to convince yourself that everything's fine and that your intuition is flawed. No real connection can exist where everything is performance. And no one can wear a mask forever without something inside starting to leak out. And when that perfect facade starts to crack, what emerges is everything they've hidden for years. This next type appears in control. Proper. Someone who avoids conflict, values good manners and balance. But suddenly, they explode. Lose control. Say things that cut like a knife. And then go back to normal as if nothing happened. You're left, confused, silent, trying to figure out what you did wrong. But the truth is, it wasn't you. They're at war with what they feel. And they're losing. This is someone with a highly repressed shadow. According to Carl Jung, every human being has a hidden part filled with disowned emotions. Anger, envy, jealousy, fear. That's the shadow. And when someone spends a lifetime trying to repress all of that just to seem right, eventually that shadow spills out. No matter how much they try to maintain their calm appearance, what's unresolved always finds a way to escape. The problem is, this emotional release doesn't come gently. It shows up as attacks, irony, sarcasm, humiliation, and whoever's nearby feels it. You start walking on eggshells, measuring words, anticipating reactions, wondering when the next outburst will come. This type of relationship doesn't show visible violence, but it creates deep emotional tension because the aggression isn't constant, it's unpredictable. And fear doesn't settle in all at once. It builds up slowly. It's like living next to a silent bomb. You never know when it's going to explode. These people don't accept their own pain and project that pain onto others. They live divided between who they try to be and who they truly are. And when that happens, your mental health starts to corrode because you live in constant, alert, trying to keep the peace. But there's no real peace when it depends on someone else's emotional control. The next profile is the moral controller. They never yell, never lose control, but they judge you with a look, with subtle remarks, with little corrections that sound like advice, but are loaded with criticism. And slowly you start to shape yourself, to rethink what you wear, what you say, what you want, because everything that doesn't fit into their idea of right becomes a reason for disapproval. This kind of person hides behind a speech of virtue. They talk about values, spirituality, and good principles. But behind it, there's a deep refusal to look at their own shadow. According to Carl Jung, the more someone represses their desires, the more likely they are to project those desires onto others. So they begin to monitor the world around them as a mirror of what they won't accept in themselves. You're not being judged for who you are. You're being used as a target for what they're trying to deny inside. It's subtle, but devastating. You begin to doubt your own integrity. Wonder if you're being selfish, vulgar, or unconscious. This kind of moralism doesn't inspire. It oppresses. It doesn't liberate. It represses. And the cruelest part is that even when you try to walk away, you still feel guilty, because they present themselves as someone who only wants what's best for you. You feel ungrateful, misunderstood, but in truth, it's not about your well-being. It's about the emotional control they exercise when you feel wrong. This pattern erodes your self-esteem. It distorts your desires, and it creates an invisible prison where you begin to hide parts of yourself just to avoid being judged or disappointing someone, until you lose who you really are. This is the kind of bond that slowly kills authenticity in the name of a false spiritual superiority. And the most dangerous part, they truly believe they're right. In the next profile, this quiet control gives way to something even more unstable. There's no morality, no mask, only the wound and chaos. This final profile is the complexed one. One day, they're sweet. The next, they push you away with coldness. They apologize, then attack, say they love you, then blame you for everything. You try to understand, try to find a pattern, but there isn't one. What exists is a cycle that confuses you, exhausts you, and breaks you from the inside out. This kind of person is constantly pulled by old wounds. Unresolved trauma that forms what Carl Jung called psychological complexes, emotional cores, that act on their own like they have a life of their own. They're reacting to the past, not the present. But you're the one who pays the price, because you become the target of memories that aren't yours. And without realizing it, you start carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. You try to be more patient, more loving, more stable, but nothing is ever enough. They accuse you of things you never did. Say you remind them of someone, that your tone annoys them, that you don't understand them, and slowly you begin to doubt yourself, to question your memory, your judgment, your reality. This is the kind of bond that confuses the mind and drains the soul. When the present is constantly invaded by the past, there's no space for a real connection, only the repetition of the same trauma, now projected onto you. And the worst part is that sometimes they seem sincere, seem like they really want to change. But soon, it all starts again. And in that emotional back and forth, you lose yourself. Because nothing is stable, nothing is clear. This is the kind of relationship that destroys your confidence and traps you in the loop of trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You're not exaggerating when you feel a strange tiredness, guilt, or other unpleasant and unexplained emotions around certain people. And now, you know why these feelings come, and which toxic people profiles cause. Them. Naming the invisible is the first step to freeing yourself from it. We all carry a shadow, but those who choose not to see their own darkness end up hurting others with it. And you've been hurt by this many times. Not because you deserved it, but because no one taught you how to protect yourself and set a spiritual boundary. To protect. Your energy is not selfishness. It's emotional maturity. It's self-love. You're not here to carry what isn't yours. You're here to reclaim what is your voice, your strength, your truth. And that begins now, by recognizing what hurt you without romanticizing it, without closing your eyes to it, without blaming yourself, without staying silent. This is the beginning of your shadow integration, of healing unconscious patterns, and of your true emotional freedom. You deserve connections that nourish you, and from now on, you won't accept anything less. If something in this video stirred something inside you, this is your moment of awakening through self-awareness. Maybe you recognized someone in these profiles. Maybe you recognized yourself, and that's okay. Healing begins when truth stops being avoided and starts being faced, when your shadows begin to be integrated. Leave a comment. Which of these profiles have you faced, or are you most afraid of becoming? Share this video. Help other women see too. If this touched you, watch the next video to continue your personal empowerment journey. You are part of a lineage of women brave enough to recognize and integrate their shadows to stop the cycle of harm. Now it's your turn to bring light, Queen.